welcome to the monthly series, Care Rituals at Home, where we spend some time getting to know a little bit more about our community healers and in our healing network. We are welcoming today Naima Merella to speak about their upcoming workshop, Care Practices for Heartbreaking Times, on Tuesday, December 16th at 10:30 a.m. Today, we will learn more about who they are, what they practice, and what to expect during their upcoming workshop. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you. And so my name is Joe, and I'm one of the co-directors of We Still Move, along with Misha Agunos, who's here visiting us, with us. And we'll tell you a little bit more about who we are. So we're a community-based organization that cultivates well-being, resilience, and joy through movement and the healing arts. We envision a world where embodiment paves the way for community and possibilities, creating culturally affirming spaces, reconnecting with ourselves and each other within the ancestral practices. And so with that, Nisha, to talk a little bit about our Healing Artist Network.
Hi, I'm Misha. As far as our Healing Artist Network goes, this is care rituals at home are part of we are collaborating with the Healing Artist Network partnership with our growing community of over BIPOC healing arts practitioners to support our community healers. Together, we collective care by just uplifting culturally healing practices that sustain our collective resilience. So these healers bring their services at our monthly community care clinics, done before in person, and we'll also be highlighting, one of our healers both through this kind of Instagram Live and then through an online workshop. So this Care Rituals at Home is kind of like our programming to meet the current needs of the season. With the attacks on our community from ice occupation, our virtual programming can be attended wherever people feel most safe. And so, we can go ahead and get started. I'll pass it back off to Joe to ease us in.
Right. So our next point, we're going to go into a little bit more about you, Naima, and start with like why why you chose this healing practice. Well, let's just start talking about your healing practice and tell us a little bit more about what it is and then tell a little bit about how you started on this journey. It selected you or you selected it? How did it all happen?
Yeah. My healing practices are I'm a massage therapist, I'm a Reiki practitioner, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm an herbalist, I'm also an artist. Um, and Yeah, all of those practices are things that I started practicing myself and then just really fell in love with them because of the healing benefits that they brought me. And so then decided to share them out with my community. And yeah, as far as my massage therapy practice, I like to, well, I guess with all of my practices, I'm also a trauma-informed practitioner, so I like to lead any space that I'm facilitating through that lens in order to make it feel safe and as accessible as possible for people who've experienced trauma, which I really believe is like anyone. Um, and so, yeah, in my massage practice, I try to really focus on creating a space where people feel like they have some autonomy, where it's really focusing on helping people connect deeper with their bodies and releasing stress and tension and really building that mind-body connection. Because I also believe that our bodies are really great at healing themselves, just sometimes they need a little extra help or facilitation in order to get there. So yeah, and then with my yoga practice, I really like to teach classes that are pretty accessible for a range of skill levels. I love teaching beginners who like think that they can't do yoga can. Um, I've taught restorative yoga, which is all about just like resting and releasing tension that way. And I feel like that's such an important practice when we live in like a grind culture where we're always like go, go, go. And that really disconnects us from like our own like body wisdom and knowledge. So the slowing down feels really important in order to like reconnect with our own intuition. Um, and then with my energy work practice, I'm trained in Reiki and have also taken classes about energy work through the hoodoo lens. So with that, I'm really like helping people to like settle their nervous systems and also connect with their energetic bodies. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of input that we get in our systems energetically, and we don't always like have a release for that. So starting to feel into that, understand what that is, can be really powerful. Um, and then with herbalism, for me, that's like very much an ancestral practice and a way to connect with the earth and its medicine and yeah, just the ways that like, you know, humans and plants have been in connection for like thousands of years. And, um, you know, that the support of plants can be really great for like our physical bodies and also like our energetic bodies. Um, and even just like the practice of like gardening and putting your hands in the dirt can be so healing. So, yeah, they're all like really potent, important practices to me in different ways, but it very much feels connected to like body, earth, ancestors, spirit, and I feel the connection between them all. Um, but yeah, I guess my kind of initiation into things was like through my yoga practice, and then things just kind of like kept growing from there. So.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, I was so curious just because there's so many, you're almost like a full clinic in itself. You can offer so many different modalities. And some people just choose one, and it seems like you've chosen one has led, and probably you've discovered how they're interconnected. I imagine that there is some, what is it? Similarities in them and whatnot. But that is so interesting that there is just so many, and it almost feels like it goes from internal to physical to even yeah, mobility. So it seems to kind of touch on all of the healing aspects of a human person and their experience with even possibly intergenerationally, because we carry all of that intergenerational trauma. Anyway, it made me think of all those things in sharing that. So thank you for letting us know how it all came to be. And also, I think for anybody who thinks that they have to just do one practice, I think we always think that we have to choose one. You being able to tell us a little bit about all of them is really inspiring. You know, um,
Hmm.
uh, so yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And then I'd like to move into like the impacts, because you started talking about a little bit something that we see a lot on one of our goals is to make these practices accessible. And sometimes it's not just about physical, it's almost also kind of like opening the minds of our community members that this is part of their practice. It's part of it's they can do it. And so talking a little bit more about what kind of are the impacts that you're seeing uh, once community members open up to receiving. And I'm talking a little bit more about like and I'll give you an example. Sometimes we'll have yoga class and we'll have community members be like, oh, I can't do yoga. I can't stretch that way. They have a preconception of what the yoga practitioner first of all does, or what their bodies can do. And so you started mentioning a little bit about how you kind of thrive in the beginners class and seeing, kind of making that accessible. So if you could speak a little bit more about that and what kind of impacts you see these practices support the well-being of the community members you serve.
Yeah. I feel like trying to create a space that's like really inviting for, I think a big thing for me is also like I can't separate like the healing from the political and like the ways that like the political climate really impacts our ability to heal, and like what we see in the mainstream impacts where we feel comfortable and like what spaces we feel like are for us, especially if you're like a BIPOC person or queer person. And so I think there's like, well, I think what you're speaking to is like there's so many like boundaries that can get in the way of like even being able to like access healing support or feeling like that's for you, whether that's just like you're working a lot of hours and you don't have like the time or the money to like get there, or like you only see like these like white yoga spaces where it's like thin white women practicing, and then you're like, well, that's not for me, like my body can't do that. And so yeah, one thing I'm really passionate about is like trying to like create spaces that feel welcoming, working in communities that are diverse so that when people show up, they can see other people that look like them, or, just really letting people know that there's like so many different ways to practice yoga. So like, if you can't get it up and down from the floor, like, great, let's go to the chair and do some chair yoga, and just kind of like working with your body where it's at, rather than like trying to push into this realm that like you're maybe not ready for, or like that's just like not really for you. I think like one important thing about healing is like just really accepting where we are in the moment and like working with that, and not feeling like we have to push ourselves into these other spaces just because that's what we're seeing around us. So yeah, and I mean, in my yoga classes, I also like to like invite people to just like move however they want to move, or really like name for them, like, even though I'm leading this, this is really for you and your body. So like really think about that as you're moving through it, and like make decisions from a place of like honoring yourself and your body. Um, so yeah.
And that's probably the essence, I think, of yoga in a sense, is stop and listen and be attuned, right? And so yeah, I've seen community just be like, whoa, I just did that. And you're like, yeah, because you stopped and listened, or, it's okay to be where you're at. So it's yeah, you bring up a lot of important points too, as well as like being able to see themselves in it. Because I think that yoga has, I mean, if we just look at yoga, even Reiki in some ways has been, unfortunately, co-opted. And so it has this image of a certain type of person and a certain type of location and a certain, and so we think it's really important to bring it back, to communities of color, people who need it, where it stems from, and so yeah, and so accessibility is an important key to that. um I don't want to take on Misha.
Yeah, I want to hop in and just really acknowledge and celebrate, like, bringing um, many things, especially acknowledging kind of like the sense of that is so integral to healing. And then especially anyone who also really loves working with beginners, like and dancing, working with beginners specifically because of kind of deconstructing the hierarchy that tends to be inherent in a lot of like, uh, even just like the dynamics in classes, but and kind of just like, you know, uh, dance class cultures in general, and even just learning the culture around learning in general, being able um, not just be someone there who's like, oh, like this is great to go someone who looks like me and has some shared experiences, but we're co-creating learning and reinforcing kind of like, there's not this like lesser value, you have less skill, you're still here participating, co-create, and where people of all levels then to practice together. So that was really cool to kind of hear about from uh, like within the like yoga, kind of like what you bring to a yoga space, a yoga practice, yoga class. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Let's see. What? Oh, oh yeah. Go ahead.
Me think of seeing a need for to make it accessible. What are some of the challenges that you've been seeing getting these services to folks? Maybe within the other modalities that you teach, like besides making it making a space accessible and comfortable. What are some of the any trends that you're seeing that are making it kind of difficult for people to access these type of healing practices?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with massage, like money is a big one. Um, like there's definitely people who like are like, I would love to get a massage, but I just can't afford it. And I do offer like sliding scale rates to try to help with that, but it is just like a more expensive service. I'm actually really excited because I just got some grant funding to offer free massages to trans folks, which especially right now feels really important. So, yeah, that's just to plug that a little bit. It's a group called Trans Embodied Care. So if you want to check that out, we're on Instagram. Um, but yeah, definitely, I think there's the money and the time capacity where, like I was saying, it's like a lot of people are just struggling to make ends meet and like pay their rent. And so then it's like, how do you have the time or the money to like invest in healing practices for yourself, even though like if you're working like crazy, you definitely really need it. So that's definitely a barrier and a way that something that I think about when I'm like, okay, how do we make this accessible? And, even in getting this grant funding for free massages, that was something I was thinking about. And yeah, I think like group classes be a way around that where it's like can make like the cost less. But inevitably there's still kind of the time factor, which is a little harder to work around because, yeah, so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, you have the economic factor, and then sometimes people also feel like, when do I have time for that? They don't prioritize themselves, so you have this whole idea of, or at least we find in the conversations we've had, even for us to be able to, what is what does downtime look like? What do we deserve, when we stop working and then take some time to do something for ourselves? Even that's hard to do because we're so not used to giving ourselves that time because we've been programmed to just work, work, work. You don't work, you lose out. You don't give yourself all of this. So there's a lot of, I think, perceptions that we have to, that I feel like I find challenging to remind people that they're deserving of that time. And definitely economical is very difficult. I mean, we hope that a medical, um, that this can be part of a what is it, prevention and
uh,
upkeep, well-being of humans, of being able to access these type of healing modalities and also sustain our practitioners. I think that's another challenging, right? Because while you're doing sliding scale, which is awesome, sometimes there's that other aspect. How difficult is for you to be able to offer these services, no, to the community you want to offer it, and knowing that you're also having to challenge with being able to make it sustainable for yourself.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like it's a hard balance to find, especially because, I think we don't live in a culture that values like healing and care. So a lot of times people also don't, it feels really foreign to some people. So, but like you were saying, it is like a huge like preventative care thing. And I feel that way, especially with like herbalism too, where it's like using herbs can really help your health in a preventative way where then hopefully down the line there's not like bigger medical things that happen. But yeah, even with just like things that offer like stress relief, like stress has such a big impact on our bodies and our health. Um, and so, yeah, doing things that can help you like regulate and de-stress is so important. So yeah, I think it's kind of like once people start doing these things, I think they feel it in their bodies and they get it and they like start to commit more, but it's kind of like getting in that initial yeah, kind of like opening the door initially for people to like feel that in their bodies is kind of like the first step.
Yeah, I think that's where the group classes come in,
Very much so.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
the chin, and then yeah, I'm just happy to hear that there's resources now. I feel like there's more resources now that support, like the grant. Congratulations on receiving that grant. And I just, it's seeming like mental wellness in the workplace, mental wellness in, at home, and with children. It just seems like it's just really starting to really be a narrative that is being welcomed by everyone, even though my mom would always say, don't, stress is the killer of all of this, and I didn't believe her for the longest time until I started realizing how much that is so, and there's data to back it up. So um I think with that said, I'd love to go into what you're planning to teach in 2 weeks. Could you tell us a little bit more about what is how to take care of yourself during these challenging times?
Yeah. So for the workshop, it's called Cure Practices for Heartbreaking Times. Um, and yeah, I was just thinking about like the current climate that we're in, and I think we're seeing a lot of like violence around us. There's a lot of things that are triggering our nervous systems pretty regularly. So, in the workshop, I'm going to go through like how does stress and trauma impact our nervous systems, and then what are practices that we can do to help regulate our nervous systems. So that will include things like movement, yoga, breath work, energy work practices, and also some herbs that are helpful. So it'll kind of like span the different modalities that I practice, um, and that way it can also be, I think there's so many different pathways to healing and things that work for some people, things that don't work for other people. And that way you can kind of identify what things work for you. And then we'll create safety plans, which will just be like writing down the things that work for you. And I think safety plans are really helpful because it's like, when we're like grounded and a little more regulated, it can be easier to know like what helps you when you're dysregulated. But then like once you get dysregulated, you kind of like forget everything. So creating a safety plan, sharing it with like your loved ones, people that are really close with you that can like help you through those moments can be really helpful to just like be able to come back to those practices when you need them most and really know what they are. So that's what the class will be. Yeah.
We're so excited. I know that I've been needing to do some of that, and and we have, it's part of our first aid kit, right? To have all of this and being, with time and spaciousness to figure out what it is that we need. I think it's so important. And so that's December 16th at 10:30 a.m. Here we have a link. We'll have it on Instagram. We'll be able to share it. And we're really excited to feature you this December and have this class. Misha, I know that I only because there's been a little lag. I'm sorry, I've been jumping on the questions a little bit, but I definitely want to give you the space to continue to ask questions.
No. It's sometimes I also get caught up in being like just the list of it. And so, just celebrating and excited for again, specifically like building little, safety involves the things that do work for people. I think especially a lot of kind of like even amongst like navigation practices, there's sorts of like teaching those spaces where it's like, oh, you just have to kind of get like push, like use this until you're good enough at it and push through this practice. It makes you feel relaxed or something to, without necessarily saying like, oh, okay, like not all of these practices are all going to for each individual. And I think coming back, noticing that theme of agency again, uh, how healing it could even be that like, hey, this doesn't work for me and that's okay. Then also, being able to be like, you know what, I don't like keep trying that until or better at it or until it does start working. Just choose to pick another tool right now. And the idea then of building like a little safety kind of like kit, safety plan to reference when our bodies are in kind of like those dysregulated or kind of like ungrounded states feel really tender and holding, actually now. And even just, knowing that like, especially in heartbreaking times, but then also even being able to be beyond like when, how supportive it is in these heartbreaking times and beyond them, whatever whatever lays beyond these times. Yeah, I know that we in these last few minutes, and so I know that you kind of like the project that that this grant that you received funded. So a little bit more about that, or about anything else that you have where people can kind of, I know that we have workshop on the 16th, but places where people can find other things you'll be up to, other kind of supports or offerings you have that you want to like chat about, like please,
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, again, the like free or folks is called Trans Embodied Care. We're also going to host a trans healing circle as part of that. So that'll be a way to, provide care for more people in a bigger space. And then other things that I'm up to, I teach weekly yoga classes. I teach at Everybody Gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. And then I teach a restorative yoga class at Highland Park Yoga on Tuesdays at 8:30. What else is going on? Yeah, I think those are kind of the main things I have going on right now. But yeah, you can also follow me on Instagram at Naima Merella. I also have like pages specifically for massage and for my herbalism stuff. And those are all linked under my main Instagram. So yeah, you can find me there. Um, yeah, I'm sure I'll have more things popping up next year, but that's kind of like what I have right now. Kind of getting into the slow down time around the holidays. Um, so yeah, but yeah, I am really glad to be here with y'all and to be offering this workshop next week. And yeah, I think that's going to be a really nice one. And yeah, excited to, just like you were saying, I think being a healing practitioner and a person who's been in a lot of healing spaces, there's been a lot of times where it's like, okay, you just got to keep doing this thing, and sometimes it doesn't work for you. And I think acknowledging that, and also acknowledging that like when you do find something that works for you, usually it's like pretty quick, and it's like, oh, that feels like really good, and it's like that's like our bodies knowing and
yes,
that, and like yeah, just using that to like you don't have to like force yourself through things, So using that as a guide can be really helpful. So yeah, I hope that people can like find some practices in there that feel like that for them and really like use that in the moments of feeling unregulated in order to like get back to the regulated, easeful space that our bodies really prefer. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Naima, so much for spending, 30 minutes. We really weren't able to dive into all the modalities in more depth. We're hoping that we have more opportunities to continue to conversate and go into all of those because I think all of those, they're their own universe, and they all have its own, amazing ways that we can heal. And so I'm excited to see a little bit of all of those in your workshop. And hopefully in the next 2026 we might be able to dive into the rest of it. But for everybody listening, oh, just one last thing. Do you should people bring anything to your workshop, anything that they should have? We're going to repost this interview, so we wanted to see if there's any way to prepare for the class and ahead of time.
I think just if you want to bring like a journal or something to take notes with, you could also maybe wear something comfortable. We'll do like some light stretches, so it won't be, I mean, you could kind of wear anything, but so being comfortable is nice. So yeah, but those would be the main.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we will also share all the details on We Still Move Instagram as well, and we'll provide all of Naima's socials. You're busy all year round, and so if anybody hasn't checked their Instagram, please do so, because they're offering all the time year round. And so yeah, thank you everybody for being with us. Thank you, Naima. And we will see each other December 13th next week. No, 16th, sorry, 16th, 10:30.
Yeah, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Kind of close us out here one more time. Care practices for heartbreaking times on Tuesday, December 16th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific with Naima. And so I'll have all of, I definitely want to make sure all like avenues that you mentioned on kind of like this post, we kind of put it on the feed. So watching this interview or have watched it, and all that gets referenced will be in there in the caption. Continue supporting these monthly workshops. You can donate to We Move at stillmove.org. Donations help it so that we can keep facilitating healing by us for us. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and to move with y'all again soon.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.